Come laugh with me, laughing tree, and I laugh with thee.
Hello everybody, Psychedelic here with another video. I promise I'll stop after this. It's the next day. We made it to 421. The day after 420, we didn't turn out like Stan Hubs, so that's good. Got some cool stuff lined up today. So I got one that came in the mail from France. Made an overseas purchase. Finally came after, I think, 2.5 weeks, which is pretty good. It's one I kind of made a splurge on and made some sales recently, so not a whole lot out of pocket there, and that's kind of the goal this year, is just to pick up on some import titles and some long out-of-print reissues. And then I did make it to the record shop yesterday, picked up one title that I've been kind of looking for, and then 3 previously that week when I hit the shop, and then one I haven't shown probably in over a month from another shop here locally, so let's dig in without keeping you waiting here. So yeah, where do I begin with this one, man? So this is one that I was kind of saying to myself, you know, because I have about 4 or 5 in mind that I'd like to pick up if I ever came across these imports. And this one did not get released in the States either. Well, none of their stuff did back then. But this is one such record, man, that, you know, as far as Vertigo pressings go, this is probably the actual Vertigo pressing that I want. I don't want the Ian Matthews or the Jimmy Campbell, the ones that are easy to get. This is one that it honestly is fairly pretty easy if you don't want the UK press. If you want the German or the France pressing, it's pretty affordable. So this is Fairfield Parlor, From Home to Home. Came out in 1970. I think it was recorded in 69, late 69. Basically, if you don't know this band, it's Kaleidoscope, just under a name change. And with this one, you know, they switched off from Fontana, moved to Vertigo, you know, sort of a progressive label at the time. And they were kind of doing the whole Moody Blues thing where, you know, they're kind of leaving the whole swinging London sound, the pop psych sound, going more towards, you know, something a little more fanciful, a little more matured, disciplined, and a little more serious this time. And I love this record. This is one that I've been kind of wanting to grab for a while now. Cool gatefold shot. You know, Peter Daltrey, he's one of my favorite singer-songwriters if I ever had one. And I'm not too big on singer-songwriters or even songwriting in general, but this guy can write. And he writes with Eddie, who was the guitarist, is that right? Yeah, did the electric guitars and Mellotron harpsichord. There's definitely some cool Mellotron moments on here. It's got a very antique, very old English kind of sound to it, and just looking at the cover kind of tells you what you're going to get into, you know, a little bit, or where they're coming from lyric-wise. It's got a lot of melancholy, a lot of sentimental touches here. And as far as the trip meter goes, this is it's got very brief moments of like psych influences, if you could even call them that. You know, side 2 gets a little more minimal psych folk with, you know, some flute, you know, some vocal effects here and there. And then side 1 is kind of more Mellotron heavy and works with a lot of like Baroque touches, even though there are no string arrangements. They couldn't really afford them at the time. The Mellotron was the way to go. So if you guys love that Mellotron, and if you love those kind of melancholy, you know, kind of out in countryside Europe, this is very much what you're going to get into here. And yeah, really glad to pick this up. Copies, you know, like I said, the German and France pressings, you can typically find around maybe 150 or so. And that's about what I paid for this. Like I said, I made a big sale recently, so it wasn't all out of pocket. Basically just paid for the shipping. And this is not a A-side swirl. You know, it's got the Vertigo label here on both sides, which I don't mind. I don't care if it's a swirly or not. It's still a Vertigo press. And I think this came out around the same time you had the other big ones come out, like Uriah Heep and Affinity. You know, just a brand new fresh label. And I don't know, usually you think of like hard rocking, progressive rock titles here on Vertigo, but this is certainly a more gentler, still kind of holds on to that whimsical sound that Kaleidoscope were known for. So yeah, very, very happy to scoop this. Love it. Probably my biggest purchase this year. Okay, moving on to the stuff. This is one I found yesterday. Did not know about this one. He did throw some used vinyl into the bins on Record Store Day. Went down to Vintage Vinyl and came out with this one. So this is one I've been kind of seeking for a while. Rig, self-titled from 1970 on Capitol. When I talked about my Capitol Records list, I made I think it was like a top 20, 25 list of the Capitol Records, and I hadn't heard this in full till yesterday. And this is pretty good, man. I think I'd heard some tracks maybe previously, just kind of seeking it out, but didn't really latch on strong enough to like, okay, I need to pick up a copy now. It's kind of one of those things, if I ever saw it for cheap, you know, local or not, to snatch it up. And this is kind of a water damage copy, as you can tell. You got those rippling effects going on. But the record plays just fine. I'm okay with that. I got this for pretty cheap. I think you'd find this for like $5-10 on average. There are a couple weak spots here, notably on the end of side one here. Sister Lisa Bookman, and then My Sweet Woman. Pretty generic, you know, kind of country blues rock thing going on. But it opens up pretty strong. Have a Cigar. I think they released that as a single as well. Kendall Cart. He wrote most of the songs on here. I think he had went on to do other things in the music business. I forget what they were when I was researching it. The next track, I Wonder Why, has got some great like pedal steel guitar. Who plays on that? Weldon Myrick? I think he's a pretty well experienced pedal steel player too. He's played with like Dolly Parton and Bob Dylan amongst many people. He's featured on here. And then some cool lyrics too. Evening at Home. I was kind of looking at some of the lyrics. The Stones turn on the stereo. Brenda stoned is terrible. Now that may seem unkind. But then side two even surprised me even more with the track like Laughing Trees. Kind of has like those post-60s pop psych sensibilities moving throughout. But primarily kind of country rock, you know, early 70s country rock. But very good though. It's definitely above average than your typical. They were basically formed as a trio, and then someone from Capitol just discovered them and playing around New York City. And it was produced by one of the Poppers, Adam Mitchell, the Poppers from Canada. And then Elliot Mazur, who had done other things too, like Jake Holmes and a few other different productions. Neil Young, I think. So, pretty cool stuff. It's on the puke green Capitol label that we all love. So there you have it, Rig. What a great band name. Anyways, moving on to these next three. These are ones that I also picked up at Vintage Vinyl earlier in the week. Some pretty cheap stuff here. This was in the $4 pile, 10 years after. Cricklewood Green. This is Bernie's copy. Thanks, Bernie. Usually you see these pretty trashed, and I mean, it's not the best looking copy, but I mean, it's got some marks, as you can tell, but it plays through really, really clean. Now, this is one 10 years after record I never did own as a kid, because I used to have, I think I used to have Watt, I used to have Shh, and there's one after A Space and Time I used to have a quadraphonic copy of that, and then the one after that, which had like a compilation of B-sides and outtakes or whatever, but I was never really like too big into them. I mean, obviously as a kid, you get what you have through collections that you buy, and I would get copies from friends, some of my dad's friends, and through collections just over time. but just never owned this one. And this is one that a lot of people over the years I've just been hearing great things about, saying this is kind of like one of their best hard rockin' albums. And I have to agree, man, this is actually pretty solid. You know, they're kind of typically known for their British blues boom at the time, you know, and they kind of have very falsified psychedelic, you know, cover art. But this one, man, this is a pretty hard rockin' album. Despite having 2 tracks, I think right in the middle. I mean, tracks like Year 3000 Blues and Me and My Baby. I mean, yeah, I don't want to hear that stuff. But thankfully, the blues structures are more in the background and more kind of a secondary afterthought. And it's kind of more based around just a kind of almost progressive hard rock sound. You got tracks like 50,000 Miles Beneath My Brain, Working on the Road, and what was the other one? Love Like a Man. Pretty lengthy tracks here. And As the Sun Still Burns Away is also a very good closer. And I think Circles is the acoustic cut on this. So don't sleep on this one. This is a pretty good one if you can find it. $10 and under, in good shape. It's on the Duram label. I was surprised how much traction this got online when I posted it. I mean, I love sharing the stuff people need to hear. But of course, you know, classics like 10 Years After, I get why people love them and definitely have their place in rock history. And this was a fun one. And this is one that I haven't listened to in probably literally 10 years. It's a total 180 here. But this is like a neo-psych band that was getting a lot of buzz at the time, and I actually haven't listened to this in full yet. I remember the first 2 tracks pretty vividly when I first heard it. This is Temples, Sun Structures. Take it out of the sleeve here. You can see it. But I got this pretty cheap, like 15 bucks. It was a used copy. What's the track? Shelter Song and Sun Structures. You know, it has a lot of that kind of booming, you know, aesthetic to it with the rhythm section. Very bombastic. But the other tracks I don't really remember as much, so I figured it was cheap enough, I'll just give it a chance. But the thing with neo-psych, I really can't get into a whole lot of stuff. I mean, I love the authenticness, the more real lived-in experience rather than, you know, kind of bringing back these old formulaic things to kind of, you know, doing a more commercial light. I don't know, that's kind of the way it hits me, but I gotta give this another shot. We'll see if it latches on or not. But there's very few neo-psych bands that get it right for me. I know that sounds arrogant or whatever, but it's just my personal preference. You know, I love the real thing. But very cool though. See how that latches on. And then I was just looking in the local section, and I remember finding this one in another shop. This is like a local record here, the Mac 5. I think Noble Records had a copy of this one time, he told me, on Instagram, and nice shrinky copy here. It's on the Century label. I don't think this is in the Acid Archives. But this is more of like a kind of a cover jazz group, jazz quartet. Don't know exactly where they played back in the day in Lincoln. Doesn't really have any info where they recorded this or anything, just shows the track list here. Hot Pants, Sweet Caroline, Raindrops Fall on My Head, Proud Mary. And the track Proud Mary has a pretty sick drum break on that track, which might be the result of the spike in price this is kind of going for. So, yeah. Otherwise, can't tell you a whole lot about it. I've only listened to side 1. But, you know, for the right person, this might be of interest. So, we'll see how long it lasts in the collection. And then this is one that I picked up, like I said, over a month ago now. And I got this at another shop in town, and sometimes their $4 section, you can find some sweet things. I found that Sagittarius second album down there, the Blue Marble. And this was also in the $4 section. And this one's pretty cheap, though, when you find it. I showed this on the live stream I did a while back to Doug Ashdown. The Age of Mouse. Kind of looks like a mouse. Or actually, we kind of look alike, don't we? Just being silly. But yeah, this is a U.S. press. And this is kind of noted as the first Australian double album back in the day. This came out like, what, 1970? 69, 70, around there. So it only features half the tracks that you get on the double LP for the Australian copy. But I've only listened to this a couple times, and I feel like it's got to grow on me a little bit. I have to get a little reacquainted with it, but the second track really stood out to me when I first heard it again. I've Come to Save Your World. Some people kind of reference that track sounding like, you know, A Visit from Bob Smith. Kind of sounds like a song that would be on there. I kind of agree. It's kind of more of the more rockin', tripped out, kind of almost a Procol Harum type of vibe is what I got from it. But good writing and whatnot. It says lyrics enclosed, but this one does not have the lyrics anymore. This is on the MCA Universal sub-label, Chorale. I have another one on Chorale. What's his name? I can see the cover. It's a guy sitting on rocks with his acoustic. I forget the name. Got that somewhere. Anyways, that's all I got for today. So hopefully you guys have been enjoying the videos lately. I've been kind of pushing more out than normal. Just been really enjoying the thread going around, the Acid Archives, and just been kind of feeling more inspired to make videos lately. I don't know why, just feeling it. Taking a little more of my day and putting time into the videos. So just been really enjoying it. So yeah, I think that's all I got for now. Fairfield Parlor, man. Really glad to scoop this one up. Vertigo. That's the way to go. Yeah, and I forgot to mention too, you know, they do, I think even Peter Daltrey even mentioned that he didn't want to include the track In My Box, which definitely has more of the poppy flavor on here. A little reminiscent of like a late period Kaleidoscope track. Otherwise, the rest does fall in place very well. Tracks like Emily, Chalk on the Walls, got some very brief moments on here, brief tracks. But yeah, I Will Always Feel the Same, Emily, and Chalk on the Wall is probably my favorite tracks. So, very good stuff. Okay, that about does it. So thanks again for tuning in, and we shall see you down the road.